Customization in video games is very important for an obvious reason. When a developer creates a world, it's something that they create out of their mind, their idea, not necessarily yours. You see said idea and it piques your interest, and that's what makes you buy it. So when you get into that world, it's nice to have something that feels like your own. Whether it's your own character, your own weapons with their own customizations on it, like skins and charms, or maybe it's a house that you built. The way these things are created and customized is what differentiates each and every one of us who play these games. In Grand Theft Auto 4 originally, when you played online in that game, everyone was Nico Bellic, same character. Wasn't that interesting? It made a lot of the stuff that you did online, which there was already not that much of in the first place, kinda boring to do. If you wanted to roleplay or just mess around in the world, everyone was Nico Bellic, and it killed the vibe a little bit. Then moving on to GTA 5, you got all this customization where you're making your own character with your own haircuts, you choose your own lineage, all sorts of different things, all sorts of different weapons that you can play with that are only in the multiplayer. And while GTA 5's practices as a game aren't exactly the greatest things, you can't deny that their customization to make something feel like your own definitely is there. For fans of fighting games, and definitely more on the casual side, I highly recommend Soulcalibur 6 because the customization in that game is absolutely amazing for a fighting game. You can take all of the characters that already exist in the game, which in my opinion is a pretty decent roster, find the playstyles that you like, then make your own custom characters with these playstyles, and make them look like completely amazing memes. Some of the quality stuff that is coming out of that is just some of the best content I think I've ever seen. Go and see Moist Critical's playlist on his YouTube channel for all those amazing 1v1 Soulcalibur custom characters. Those are just some of the best. And even if you don't want to sit around and make your own character, one of the beautiful things about Soulcalibur 6 is that you can view creations made from other players, and you can get them and download them as well. So if someone makes something that looks really dope, or something that's absolutely hilarious, don't be surprised if you find a lizard with like a really giant penis. There's quite a few of those, by the way. Then you can download it, if that's your thing. But enough about penis lizards, let's talk about Dark Souls customization, because it's something I didn't really touch on when I did my Dark Souls video, and I find this to be kind of a perfect opportunity to do that. So Fashion Souls is a really big deal in the Dark Souls community. It's where all these people post the custom characters that they make that they think are really cool and upload them to this page and where all these people show off their characters, and it gives what weapons they have, what pieces of armor they're wearing. So if you want to create that character, you can do that. But role-playing in the Dark Souls community is also a very big thing. I have a few friends myself that I know that are really big into this thing, where we would meme around all the time, where we try and make specific weapon builds catered to these types of characters. Like, I have a friend who has a character on PC Dark Souls 3 that's like Darth Vader. He keeps telling me all about it. He's been telling me about it recently. I actually haven't seen it yet, but if I get a picture of it or something, I'll throw it up on the screen. You can make all kinds of really cool characters that we messed around. We made Dragon Ball characters, and we used Soul Stream, which is kind of like a Kamehameha that you just like shoot from a staff. It's a really, really cool ability. But you do that, and you can extend the time of it by using certain rings and shit like that. It's certainly a really in-depth system too. They have things that go as far as, nose, ridge and length, and eyebrows, ridge and length, and stuff like that. So it can get specifically very detailed. I don't know how much time a lot of people usually put into that kind of thing, but the point is you can make some very minor detail adjustments to make it look very similar to the character that you're looking for. Want to look like a real badass beefcake? Then my personal suggestion is taking the Nameless King chestplate and then taking a silver or black knight helmet. I personally like using mine with the lightning spear, but it looks pretty cool with some of the flame swords in the game too. All in all, I just suggest a bit of a longer and or bigger sword or spear. That's probably the best weapons looking with that, especially something that they can two-hand and it look kind of badass. But if you find Fashion Souls to be your thing, I'll leave a link for that build. For the less creative ones of us, much like myself, I prefer costumes. Costumes are typically really cool cosmetics with a lot of really cool detail, but of course already pre-made. Now a lot of these unfortunately in the modern day are purchased, but some of them are still unlocked through challenges too, and or free to unlock. I think a really good example of a game with really cool, cheap cosmetics and also possible to unlock is Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V has some really good looking costumes, and while some of the monetization isn't exactly my favorite, I have to say the costumes and art design is some of the best that Capcom has ever done for anything. I remember back in the day when Capcom used to do things like holding down a button to make you get a different costume. For instance, a game that I talk about quite a lot, Third Strike. If you hold down the A button instead of like the X button, for instance, on the controller, for Ken, you'll have purple Ken, but if you held down X or square, you'll have normal Ken. Something I really appreciate about cosmetics in games is crossover cosmetics. Again, Street Fighter V does a really good job at that. For instance, Ken has a costume that gives him Rathalos armor, and Ryu has one that gives him an outfit of Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins. But some other games that do a really good job at that, Overwatch is a really good game, was a really good game that does a really good job at its cosmetics and has some really cool Blizzard skins from other Blizzard titles. For instance, Roadhog got a skin for the Butcher, and Zarya got a skin of the Barbarian from Diablo 1, which is some of the best skins in the game. They also got some StarCraft skins, one for Widowmaker that makes her look like Nova. Of course, while I don't really care for this game myself, I feel it almost necessary that it has to be mentioned since we're talking about skins in the first place, and that's Fortnite. In Fortnite, while it is a free-to-play game, this does in fact mean that all the cosmetics are going to be earnable, of course, but I think this is a good time to bring up the Battle Pass and how much of a good thing and bad thing the Battle Pass kinda can be, because you pay money to get a bunch of skins, basically, but to unlock the skins. In a lot of ways, I actually think Battle Passes are a really good thing to add to games like this. COD Warzone has them too, and that's a pretty fun game in my opinion. If you're only playing the actual Warzone, then I think the stuff is worth the money. If you're also paying for those cosmetics and have the multiplayer, it can feel like a bit of a ripoff, I have to admit. But as I was saying, with Fortnite, we got Master Chief, we got Kratos, we got Marvel characters. Quite a few Marvel characters were added to that game. There's all kinds of cool crossover costumes, so they have to be mentioned regardless. They have all sorts of battle passes too with the same crossovers. They had Star Wars with The Mandalorian, and they had an entire battle pass, I think possibly even 2 entire battle passes dedicated to Marvel content. So you can't really deny the hustle that they have, and honestly, if you like the game, it's a pretty good bargain. You're paying $10 to also have enough coin to pay for the stuff next season, and it's a free-to-play game, so I mean, that's really the only thing they're making money off of, even if it's tons of it, so I can't sly them necessarily for their business practices. But I can say that the stuff that these games have in their stores, not on the Battle Pass, are a little expensive, and sometimes some of the coolest stuff that they make is what costs the most, and that's where it gets a little bit scummy. Though I'm not going to talk too much about scumminess and business practices or anything, the cosmetics that they do introduce into these passes and into these games are pretty cool, and like I said, it's a pretty good thing to have those of us who are a little less creative. I have to be honest when I say the types of cosmetics that I don't really care for in games is probably looter shooter cosmetics, because what a lot of those games do, especially Destiny, is when you switch armor pieces, it changes what your armor looks like, which in hindsight is kind of a nice thing, but usually they don't have this kind of option to make your character look like your character until like the end of the game. And I have some pretty cool armor in Destiny 2, I think, but when they had sunsetting stuff, for instance, it was a disaster. I couldn't use any of the cool stuff that I wanted. It didn't matter. Some of the armor that I was using was sunsetted, and now Destiny 2 got rid of sunsetting, but they also sunsetted half the content of the game, so I don't really want to play it anyway. But regardless, I've kind of grown out of the idea of picking up armor that looks different all the time, specifically in a game where I constantly have to upgrade my gear. Because when I constantly have to upgrade my gear, I constantly have to change my cosmetics, and the things that I want to see my cosmetics the most in are in like cutscenes and stuff. So what I think a lot of these games need to try and do, instead of these transmog systems, like a lot of people might know about with the recent Destiny 2 controversy, for instance, the new garbage transmog system they want to do, which is like a universal ornament system, which is basically what I'm about to talk about, except it really should just be a push of a button. If you think a cosmetic looks cool, you should just be able to press a button, and then that's what the cosmetic will look like. So, as long as I own that helmet, I can make the current helmet that I'm wearing look like that helmet, and I can understand if there's specific pieces of armor or whatever to the rule, but I feel like this should be an overwhelming majority normal thing. Of course, game developers are going to want to create things to try and monetize their games further than what they already make off of people paying for the game in the first place, or sometimes companies may deliberately make their game free to play way later on so they can over-monetize some of the things that they add to the game. For those of you who don't really know anything about the transmog system that they're adding to Destiny 2, let's just say it's a little garbage. Some people love doing fashion in games like that, especially because of how much hard work actually goes into making your Guardians look cool, and just to have something like that be put in is really shitty. I think transmog in games, though, is overall a really good and much-needed system, especially for looter shooters, but man, is it handled horribly with Destiny 2's new system, and I'm sure they're going to go 2 steps forward and then again another step back. So they're going to partially leave in some of their garbage, but the community is going to be like, hey, you know, you did a good thing by reverting it because that's what we asked you to do. And Bungie will be like, yeah, you know, we're cool guys, we're listening. And it's kind of dangerous to let game companies do that. So when it comes to cosmetics in modern day gaming, it's okay to fight for what you guys want, you know what I mean? Just because something is just cosmetic, that doesn't mean it should necessarily cost money. We should try and convince developers that some of the cool stuff should still be available for free too. I mean, obviously I get it in a free-to-play game, but a lot of people, for instance, paid for Destiny 2 4 or 5 years ago whenever it first came out, and it was $60. And a lot of those people are still the dedicated players playing the game now, yet all this monetization is being added into the game for quote-unquote free-to-play players. I think a lot of people just, it's okay. It's okay. Just because something doesn't affect gameplay, it doesn't mean it's suddenly okay to monetize it. That's all I want people to take away from this, like, costume and or transmog system part of this video. Before we go, I find it to be very important to mention weapon customization as well, because weapons are a huge part of the games that we play. For instance, Modern Warfare does this thing that I really like with its guns, where it gives them gun skins, but then there's also gun effects and tracer rounds. So you get 3 different cosmetics in one weapon. You get an M4A1, and then this M4A1 will have whatever cool skin, maybe it'll move or whatever, and then it'll have rounds that'll be a certain color while you're shooting them at people, so tracer rounds, and then it can have dismemberment effects or mist effects or whatever might come with it. In the old days of normal Call of Duty, not only did we have the normal unlockable gun skins that you get for every weapon with the challenges anyway, but you also had buyable gun skins as well, except these were a lot cheaper, like $2.50 or whatever, but you'd be paying for specific camo, and you could equip it on all of your weapons. This would be things like the Panda camo or the Pack-a-Punch camo in Black Ops 2. But of course, a gun wouldn't be a gun, or a weapon wouldn't be a weapon without whatever attachments or charms that you put on the thing in the first place. So all the attachments, especially in Call of Duty, that you can put on your different guns, can really make a gun feel like your own, especially like in some of the now Modern Warfare and Cold War games. So those 2 games have some really good attachment options, and they're also very specific on the roles that they play within the game's sandbox. They'll tell you different things that they'll buff and nerf about your weapon, and that'll give you a more informed decision on why you should equip it. So essentially, there's different attachments in the game to help you play by your playstyle. So if you're someone who likes to sit around, you might want something that aims in a little bit slower, but makes you a lot more steady. But if you're someone who likes to rush in, you might not worry as much about recoil because you can carry your accuracy, but then also aim down sights a lot faster. Another game that does this exact same kind of thing, but in a different way, would be Doom Eternal. I think Doom Eternal does an excellent job by doing this with different ways to play the game, rather than different things to change the way your weapon works. So, for instance, with the combat shotgun, you have the choice between full auto, or you can use a sticky bomb. Or, if you're playing with the plasma rifle, you can choose for a heat blast or the microwave beam. With the heat blast, you do a lot more damage, but with the microwave beam, you can make enemies falter, which gives you a higher chance of doing an execution, and with the execution, you reap rewards from getting those kills such as ammunition, health, etc. And of course, there's nothing quite like sticking a little charm to show of appreciation on your gun at the end of the day to let it know that it's a finished piece. In Valorant, for instance, they have little buddies that you can put on the side of your gun, or Rainbow Six Siege, they're called charms. Of course, the best charms to use in Siege are honestly the ones that you get from rank just to show off how much of a tryhard you are, but it was still pretty cool that they were there in the first place, especially in a game like Siege where they're a lot more noticeable than they are in like Valorant. No one's looking at the charms, or buddies rather, in Valorant. But they're a part of modern gaming now, so we're gonna have to get used to having charms there. And you know what? It's nice. It gives your gun a little bit of personality. It's nice to have a trinket, you know? Colorful lights and stuff can do a lot for making a gun look cool, but the trinket adds a little extra personality. Definitely makes it feel more personal. I don't think charms are that cool in the grand scheme of things, but they're definitely pretty cool, you know, as like a small thing. It's definitely more of a personal thing that you look at as the person who owns the weapon, rather than as someone else acknowledges on the side of your gun, unless, of course, like in Siege, where you can put your ranks there. I think you can put your ranks there in Valorant, but nobody ever talks about those. Regardless, charms aren't super special, and I hope they don't get monetized too hard, because I don't think anyone's going to look at a weapon bundle, for instance, and be like, oh, hey, that charm's in there, and that's why I want to buy it. So I hope no dev's dumb enough to be like, hey, we should shove a ton of charms inside of this bundle, and hey, it's the charm bundle. It might work if it's like anime for those types of people, I guess. And that's about it. I didn't want to go with a super long video or anything on this one. The last video was 35 minutes. This video was entirely created from me just talking on the spot from memory of a lot of games that I really enjoy, so I hope it turns out not being too dull or sounding too awful. It's also kind of a video to help me practice on my speaking a little bit, because I listen to myself in some of these videos and sometimes I sound a little dull, a little dry, whatever. Sometimes I make some noises with my nose. I tend to have a stuffy nose quite a bit, so I apologize if that's like a thing that picks up quite a bit in these videos. But that's pretty much it. Again, thanks for watching. I really appreciate when you guys take time out of your day to give me the time of day for what I'm doing, because again, this is just something that I do for passion, and I'd love to be able to make a living out of it if I could for a little while, you know? And that's about it. See ya.